What's up, guys? WhoNeedsMeta here. So today I wanted to do something a little different. Today I wanted to do a little bit of a format breakdown slash introduction to September 2011 or Tengu plant format. For starters, the cutoff point of this format is the last legal set. Core set is Generation Force, but a lot of people include YCS Columbus, which included the Dark World structure deck. So it essentially just adds another deck to the format. Whether you want to include that deck is kind of up to your group, but most people will include the Dark World structure deck. It adds another deck to the format. Yeah, that deck is Dark Worlds. That deck is kind of degenerate. But if you play with side decks, that deck typically gets pretty annihilated by side decks. You can kind of look down here. You have Crow, Imps, Shadow Mirrors, Debonks, Deep Prison. All these cards are good against Dark Worlds, and of course Caius really hits it. So we typically include the Dark World structure deck. It's important to note that there is no Photon Shockwave, which is Dino Rabbit. So no Rescue Rabbit, no Lagia, no Dolka, and of course no Zenmains, which is the big rank 3. So typically in this format, where Tour Guide is really prevalent in a lot of things, you'll typically see Summon Tour Guide, get Sangam, and pass on that, rather than making like a Levy or Leviathan Dragon. Turn 1 Sangan is really good, except for when you get Thunder King, because being able to search Maxx C is really important. And another thing is on this list here, I have it pulled up, all the changes. The big one, besides Royal Oppression finally being banned, which is really awesome, is we lose Trunade and we get back Heavy Storm. So that kind of eliminates a lot of set 5 past decks. 2011 Nationals was won by TG Stun, which definitely still is a deck in this format. You just have to play cards like Starlight Road, and that deck isn't as strong. It did win YCS Atlanta, which was the last event of the format, but I personally believe that the ban list was out and known at that time. So if you take a look at that, you'll see a lot of people opting to play plants, and then of course TG Stun that won the event, because when you know something is going away like this deck, we knew that we were losing plants and we were losing TGs, so people would, last hurrah, play that deck. So that's kind of why you see a little bit more representation there at YCS Atlanta, even though the Wind Up Loop and Dino Rabbit and Inzektor's much better decks. Which brings us to the kind of the pros and cons. The pros, the big one being that plants, while being the best deck at the time, it is not necessarily the best deck. Or not, I don't want to say it's not necessarily the best deck. We haven't really fully explored this format. I think this is going to be the next GOAT. I guess what I mean is that it's the gap between this deck and the other decks of the format is not that large, to where we clearly have this is the best deck. There's nothing that can keep up with it. Play plants or lose. That's not really how this format works. We still have plenty of decks, Agents, Dark Worlds that were mentioned earlier, but Gladiator Beast, Hero Lives Glads actually was introduced in this format. Generation Force gave us a Hero Lives, so you have the Hero Lives Glads. I like Pure Glads in this format. Again, the aforementioned TG Stun. Kara Curry was a really good rogue pick. Jeff Jones top Columbus with Kara Curry. And then, of course, X-Sabers, this is the last time that we were able to do multiple Dark Soul searches. Before it was errated in the tins that came out in, I believe, in December. And then, of course, we had the return of Twilight. Another thing that happened in this ban, I remember everyone thought Twilight was going to be huge. Probably another huge change is this is the first time that BLS is legal since GOAT format. So we have the return of BLS, and we also have 3 Judgment Dragon, and then we got a second Necro Gardenet as well. So those are big changes. We also have 2 Card Troopers, things like that. So that deck is not good, but people thought it was going to be good just because, again, 3 Judgment Dragon for the first time since 2008, I believe, when the deck was first introduced. So it was been a while since that deck was playable, but there are tons of viable decks, as well as some other decks that were later discovered. For me personally, it's this deck that I kind of put together based around the YCS Kansas City list that's based around Dimensional Alchemist. I don't know, I just think this deck rules, and I think it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of a fun little thing to put together after the fact, knowing the card pool, and we can kind of explore and things like that. So this is kind of one of the more explored things, and for me, with this format as opposed to GOAT format, I don't think the decks that we can discover are as degenerate as something like Turbo Chaos that you would see in GOAT format. In terms of cons, I guess, if you want to say, this is the last format that Trap Dust Shoot is legal. I personally think this card should have went to 0 after March 2007 and not 1, but we are still left with one copy of Trap Dust Shoot, and this card is, it is really interesting to hear someone talk their thoughts or like watch a game where every card in your opponent's hand, whether that be through a crush card, a deck dev, or a Trap Dust Shoot, and you know exactly what to play around. And while there is skill in that, it just leaves the other player at such a big disadvantage that for me, this is probably one of the biggest cons of the format. Another one being that we haven't really figured out if we like a deck that can truly utilize Vanity's Emptiness, because again, that card is legal at 3. And we just never really used it. I don't know if it's because the format is emptiness proof, meaning that like there isn't a deck that can take advantage of it, or we just haven't gotten to that point yet. Who saw Thunder Dragon being a staple in GOAT and being one of the best cards? So that's another thing that I was thinking of. And then possibly Thunder King can really kind of grind games to a halt, depending on your hand and things like that. But a well-timed Thunder King can really, really, really slow the game down. But it is part of the mirror, which, again, in a pro column, this is probably one of the best mirrors that the game has ever seen. Perfect Circle is another great one. I really do like the Water Mirror as well, but that one can kind of end out of nowhere based on, you can really easily OTK in that deck. And with this, it's pretty difficult to OTK in plants, and again, like Perfect Circle, it's difficult to OTK, so that's another reason why I like that. But a big reason for me is that the only search card in this entire deck is Sangan. So every game is going to be different, and every game is going to be unique because of the fact that Sangan is the only card that can search in the entire deck. So your hands are going to have great variance. The games are going to have great variance. There's not a set combo. It's kind of like you kind of have to go off the cuff based on what's going on. And resource management in this format is extremely, extremely key. It is really, really easy to get punished for using your bulb or spore too early, or misusing your formula synchron, or not getting value out of a librarian. It's just really, really easy to kind of misplay these cards. I guess another con would be the overprevalence of Maxx C really straddling the game. Maxx C really puts a contingency on deck building where you have to be like, can your deck play it? Because it has to be able to play it. That's another reason I think Twilight really struggled, because it couldn't really utilize Maxx C all that well, as opposed to Valor, because we still have turn player priority at this point. It would be removed a little bit into next format, which is why you see the ratio of 3-1 with Valor. Valor's a light target. You can go grab it off Sangan if you really are afraid of a tour guide play on your opponent's end, or a Caius play, or things like that. So you have the option to go search the one effect Valor. Again, it's a light. That's another target off 1-for-1 if you've already used your Bulb and Spore, so that card isn't dead, because this card is very much a power card. But Maxx C is absolutely the hand trap of the format. So 1, does your deck get absolutely annihilated by Maxx C? And 2, can your deck play Maxx C to take advantage of it? Because I feel like this card is incredibly necessary. Again, Lightsworn playing Valor because you can get it back off Beckoning Light. So this is why you kind of preferred that. But just Maxx C is just such a better card. It is such a good card. It is so important to the format. And your deck, again, the reason this deck is good is because it can stop. If you Maxx C Venus, your opponent is just in a really, really bad spot. If you 1-for-1 Dandy and they Maxx C, yeah, that sucks and it really puts you behind. But you open 1-for-1 Dandy. So just summon Thunder King or summon Tengu and pass. So, again, it's kind of one of those things where you have options to play around. This deck is extremely versatile. It's extremely fun to play. Agents are extremely fun to play. Yeah, Christie is not fun to play against. But, hey, go back and add Smashing Ground to the side deck, because it has more defense than Hyperion and Gotchi and all that. So play Smashing Ground, and then you could smash in this side deck or whatever. Again, this format is very wide open in terms of interpretation and things that you can do with it. It is a lot of fun. I really enjoy this mirror. And for me, the pros just greatly outweigh the cons. There are so many fun, obviously, meme decks that exist in this format. We've played King of Skull Servants. We played Fenrir. We've played Ice Barriers. We know that there's a ton of just absolutely humongous piles of garbage in this format that are fun to play. But there's also a lot of hidden gems that we haven't figured it out quite yet. And I'll probably profile this deck at some point, talking about why I think it's good. And I've done that video explaining why I like this deck in this format, and why I just kind of wanted to do a video why I enjoy this format and why I think it's good, pros and cons, things like that. An introduction, what's the cutoff point, being Gen 4 Stark Worlds. And you can kind of figure out what to do from there. The playlist will be in the end card for duels and deck profiles and things like that. I do plan on doing something for the 10-year anniversary of YCS Columbus during October, so look out for that, and thanks for watching, guys.